Mark Twain. His original name was Samuel Langhorne Clement. He was an American writer and orator. Mark Twain was his pen name, which was originally a term used by Mississippi River sailors to indicate the depth of water measured on the waterway. He is the founder of American critical realism literature. He wrote a large number of works throughout his life, covering genres such as novels, plays, essays, poems, and so on. In terms of content, his works criticize irrational phenomena, or the ugliness of human nature, and express the strong sense of justice and concern for ordinary people of this writer, who used to be a typesetter and sailor. In terms of style, experts and general readers agree that humor and satire are the hallmarks of his writing. He experienced the development process of the United States, from early capitalism to imperialism, and his thoughts and creations also showed a development stage from light-hearted jokes to sharp satire, and then to pessimism and world weariness. In the early stage, he was good at sharp satire, and in the later stage, the language became more exposed and fierce. Mark Twain's works have had a profound influence on later writers. His narrative style, sense of humor, and concern for social issues have become an important tradition in American literature. Many later writers, such as Hemingway, Faulkner, etc., were inspired by Mark Twain. Hemingway once said, "All our literature comes from Mark Twain." This fully illustrates Twain's important position in the history of American literature. Mark Twain holds a high status in the history of American literature and was praised by literary critic William Eisenhower as the Lincoln of American literature. His representative works include The Adventures of Harry Bain, The Prince and the Pauper, and The £1,000,000 Banknote. His language is humorous and full of ruthless satire on social reality. Therefore, different versions of Mark Twain's sarcastic quotations are circulating among the people. These quotations vividly demonstrate his sarcasm and sharpness, as well as his incisive sense of humor. We have selected 100 for you to experience together. Don't go around saying the world owes you a living. The world owes you nothing. It was here first. If you pick up a starving dog and make him prosperous, he will not bite you. This is the principal difference between a dog and a man. Habit is habit, and not to be flung out of the window by any man, but coaxed downstairs, a step at a time. Kindness is the language which the deaf can hear, and the blind can see. The best way to cheer yourself up is to try to cheer somebody else up. There are basically two types of people. People who accomplish things, and people who claim to have accomplished things. The first group is less crowded. I was seldom able to see an opportunity until it had ceased to be one. Wrinkles should merely indicate where smiles have been. A lie can travel halfway around the world, while the truth is still putting on its shoes. The human race has one really effective weapon, and that is laughter. Life would be infinitely happier if we could only be born at the age of 80 and gradually approach 18. Everyone is a moon and has a dark side which he never shows to anybody. Keep away from people who try to belittle your ambitions. Small people always do that, but the really great make you feel that you, too, can become great. The most important days in your life are the day you are born and the day you find out why. Never argue with stupid people. They will drag you down to their level and then beat you with experience. If you tell the truth, you don't have to remember what you said. The truth must be served like a coat and not thrown in the face like a wet towel. Only two things we'll regret on deathbed: that we are a little loved and little traveled. The violet was crushed by a foot, but it left its fragrance at the bottom of the foot. This is forgiveness. A banker is a fellow who lends you his umbrella when the sun is shining, but wants it back the minute it begins to rain. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to overcome fear and defeat it. All you need in this life is ignorance and confidence, then success is sure. Whenever you find yourself on the side of the majority, it is time to pause and reflect. Anger is an acid that can do more harm to the vessel in which it is stored than to anything on which it is poured. Of all the animals, man is the only one that is cruel. He is the only one that inflicts pain for the pleasure of doing it. When your friends begin to flatter you on how young you look, it's a sure sign you're getting old. Comedy is tragedy plus time. Don't part with your illusions. When they are gone, you may still exist, but you have ceased to live. Be careful when reading books on healthcare, as a printing error might cost you your life. When you fish for love, bait with your heart, not your brain. Prophesying was the only human art that couldn't be improved by practice. Happiness ain't a thing in itself. It's only a contrast with something that ain't pleasant. That's all it is. A person's most dangerous enemy is his own mouth. Each person is born to one possession, which outvalues all his others: his last breath. No amount of evidence can convince an idiot. Principle is another name for prejudice. Sometimes reality is more absurd than fiction, because fiction is based on a certain logic, while reality often has no logic at all. Don't tell the truth to people who don't deserve it. Do something every day that you don't want to do. This is a most valuable rule, which can help you develop the habit of doing your job conscientiously and without feeling pain. It is not ignorance that gets us into trouble, but rather false judgments that seem correct. Be alert to those seemingly reasonable, but possibly wrong views that may lead us into trouble. Traveling is the best way to eliminate ignorance and hatred. Going out and seeing the world will help us discover more beauty and eliminate prejudice in our hearts. True friends, good books, and a good conscience. This is the ideal life. Good breeding consists in concealing our better opinion of ourselves and concealing our worse opinion of others. In the first half of life, we have the ability to enjoy, but not the opportunity to do so. In the second half of life, we have the opportunity to enjoy, but not the ability to do so. If all men are rich, then all men are poor. In a political society, it is those in power who decide what justice is. That is to say, those in power have the privilege to create justice at will and the privilege to abolish justice. Lack of money is the root of all evil. Money is a good servant if you know how to use it, but it becomes your master if you don't. Of all fragile things, the most fragile is morality that has not been tested in the fire. The soul is full of meanness, the pockets are full of plunder, and the mouth is full of lies. Great wealth is a poison to a man who is not accustomed to the use of it, and it invades the flesh and marrow of his character. To break your heart, it would take cooperation between your enemy and your friend, one to slander you and the other to tell you the news. Fanatical desires will lead to dangerous actions and absurd things. Get your facts first, then you can distort and misinterpret them as you please. The strong look down on difficulties, while the weak look up to difficulties. You are as weak as water. People will soon discover that. They won't have to work too hard to see that you are spineless. They can treat you like a slave. Even if you keep your mouth shut and look like a fool, it is better than opening your mouth and letting others confirm that you are a fool. You can be slovenly in your clothes, but you must not let your soul be tainted. Before someone comes up with a new idea, people always say he has a wild idea. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to resist and control fear. Every latitude thinks he can be the equator if he gains the right. My previous dreams were so happy, but the reality is so terrible. 20 years from now, you will be disappointed not by the things you did, but by the things you didn't do. So untie the ropes, leave the safe harbor, and set sail. Explore, dream, and discover. It is not facts and events that make up the main ingredient of life. Its main ingredient is the storm of thought that blows through one's brain, all one's life. When politicians handle state affairs, they often consider whether it is in accordance with etiquette, but never care whether it complies with moral standards. Kindness is a language that the deaf can understand and the blind can see. There are 2 times in a man's life when he should not take speculative risks. One is when he has the capital to speculate, and the other is when he cannot afford it. Truth is the most valuable thing we have. Let us economize it. The problem with the world is not that people know too little, but that they know too much that is not true. Without the desire to change it, you have no right to criticize it. Censorship is like telling people that they can't eat steak because babies can't chew it. It is harder to convince people that they have been deceived than to deceive them. Good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. Human history, and each of our own experiences, is replete with evidence that the truth is easy to destroy, but a well-told lie thrives. The only difference between reality and illusion is that illusion needs to be believable. When Congress is in session, our lives, liberty, and property are most in danger. Every citizen should consider himself or herself as an informal, unpaid policeman, constantly monitoring the law and its enforcement. Humans are rational animals. That's just a statement. I think it's debatable. Mankind has always had this uniqueness. It has retained 2 sets of laws, one private, one real, one public, one pretentious. They are all speaking and expressing their thoughts. But some people get into trouble while others win a clause. This is the philosophy of expression. It is easier to fool people than to make them believe they have been fooled. The end of patience is heaven. Every wrinkle on your face is proof that you once smiled. The truth is our most precious thing. Let us use it sparingly. Great wealth has sufficient allure to surely and fatally lead astray those whose moral foundations are not strong. You will naturally be more careful about things you don't understand, and the troubles that come to you are caused by things you think you understand. Doctors know so little and charge so much. The secret to getting ahead is to get started. Beauty and charm were originally 2 things to acquire. Fortunately, not all beautiful women have charm. Often, women with ordinary appearances have another kind of charm. The most tragic thing is to be young and pessimistic. It's better to keep your mouth shut and let others just think you might be a fool than to open your mouth and talk and make them completely sure. The secret to making progress is to start. The secret to starting is to break down the dauntingly complex task into actionable tasks, and then start doing the first one. When faced with a desperate situation of life and death, Human nature is completely exposed before everyone's eyes. The bloody scene of cannibalism blatantly shows the animal side of human beings, which makes people reflect. The more forbidden something is, the more popular it becomes. For every school closed, one more prison is built. The reason I am so smart is that I never waste my energy on unnecessary things. The best courtesy is to stay out of other people's business. Giving others appropriate space is a kind of respect and wisdom. The golden age is before us, not behind us. Humans are the only animals that blush, or the only animals that should blush. Don't argue with fools, otherwise others will not know who is the fool. Arguing with fools often lowers your IQ. When encountering different opinions, it may be a better choice to laugh it off.